Good evening and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. Welcome, Andrew. Welcome, Johnny. Back to the show. I was suffering a little bit of a cold last week and it's only got worse. So apologies if I'm a bit spluttery, nasally, sniffly. I'll try and mute myself so I don't, ruin your ear cavities with my horrible illness that I'm having. But everyone seems to be getting because it is that time of year. Christmas is creeping ever closer. I'm sure you're all getting all your presents all sorted and everything like that. So make sure you nip over to USA Sports as well for your NFL gear. It's going to be a fun few weeks. Obviously, we're a bit time off around Christmas, but there's a lot going on. And what a weekend of football we had as well. We had the NFC Championship. Well, the predicted NFC Championship game, I mean, it's not there yet, but we feel like both of these teams are on the way there, and that's the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. The 49ers coming out on top 42-19 at Lincoln Financial Field. Johnny, I'll start off with you. A very competitive game. A game where I feel like the scoreline flatters San Francisco a little bit. Did you stay up to watch it, or did you catch the highlights? Or how did you capture this game?
Yeah, I did watch this game. I actually watched it via Red Zone, and to be honest, like the first quarter, I think it was Reddick, wasn't it, who sacked Purdy on the first or second snap of the game. I just thought that was going to set the tone, and San Francisco struggled very early on, but managed to find a way and were so brutal in their in the game. And it's obviously very hard hitting two huge rivals. But San Francisco got their revenge, and I think deservedly so. It was, I think beforehand when we were doing our sort of predictions, it was almost a coin flip for me, and I went with the Eagles because obviously they had home advantage, and I think in a game that looks so even on paper, that sort of thing can hold as quite a big advantage, but yeah, the 49ers were awesome. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about Brock Purdy. He's now the favourite for the MVP, which is, it's obviously polarising opinions. But I mean, the San Francisco 49ers were known as such a juggernaut of a team, they're definitely the best team in football at the moment. I think this perhaps could be the game. I think for the Eagles, their next game against the Cowboys is the one that everyone's going to be, looking to see them obviously make a bit of a comeback. And if not, then that throws the whole NFC a bit wide open to see who can catch the 49ers. But yeah, a huge result for San Fran, and deserved winners on the day.
Over 700 yards of offensive play altogether in this game, Andrew, and probably the game of the season, some people may think. Is this a bit of a statement win? San Francisco going into Philadelphia and coming out with not even just a win. This is like an embarrassing win over the Eagles.
Yeah, of course, it's definitely a statement win. Obviously, there was a load flying around from the players on Twitter prior to the game, trying to avenge what happened last year, really, and saying like, "Look, when we're fit and we've got Brock in there, this is what we could have done to you." So I think there's definitely a statement. There was always going to be a lot to it in that case, but I think what we saw was what we saw from the Eagles a lot this year. Me and Adam spoke about this on the betting show. I've said heavily that. I said last week as well, that the Eagles really struggle in the first half of games. And if they come up against someone who can get off to a quick start, and especially a team like the 49ers that have got a great defense and a good run game, they'll be able just to sort of manage the clock, run it out, and win it that way, which is kind of really what we saw. The Eagles really need to work out how to get going in the first half of games because they've been outplayed every single game virtually. For the most of the season in that first half. It's only the fourth quarter they really turn up. But I don't think this is the end of the Eagles. I think they'll bounce back. I think they'll play. This sets them up well for next week, I think. I think they can take the loss here and then be really up for beating the Cowboys. So I wouldn't be surprised if they dominate the Cowboys in their next game.
You say that about the Eagles, though, but they were first quarter outscored 2 field goals, outscored San Francisco. Reddick had a great sack on Purdy. San Francisco looked, they didn't really have a completion for the first 5 passes. They were a little bit off the mark as well.
Yeah, I think this is another reason why people are calling for Purdy to be MVP, isn't it? I think the fact that he can go 0-5 on passing and then just go to the sideline, come back in and go, yeah, let's turn it on. I think that's one of the big nods, especially against the team that he's done it against. That is the only reason I can think of that he is now 3-1, other than the fact that there's no other quarterbacks really competing for it. They're massively blowing up the stats. So yeah, there is that case, but like you say that you say that they got out to a bit of a lead. It's not really a lead, is it? Field goals. You need to be getting those 7 points and pushing on and getting in the lead properly. Don't let teams hang around. I think that's what people have done against the Eagles a lot. They've let them hang around in games and then they've turned on at the end. So you've got to put teams away early if you want to be vying for that number one spot.
I mean, you are right. They only scored 6 in the first half. San Francisco answered in the second quarter with 14 points. Do you think, Johnny, it's a little bit of arrogance from the Eagles that they're not sort of, or is it that teams have worked them out, or is it that it's just not quite clicking fully in the first half? What do you think the reason is for them putting up such, poor numbers in the first half and have done in the previous games?
I do think the 49ers were able to completely, or well, not completely, but were able to shut down the run game of the Eagles on Sunday, and their only other defeats I remember is to the New York Jets, where again they were able to shut down what I think is probably the asset that they've utilized the most this season, which is the run game, and that's my only concern, I think, going into the game against the Cowboys, is just how dominant they've been in that side of the field this year so far, in the last few weeks especially. So I don't know. Obviously, Jalen Hurts has so much talent around him. He just hasn't really hit top gear, I don't think, this year. And that's probably why they are very over reliant on the run game to be clicking, and when it isn't, I think that's when we've seen them get shut down by the Niners last week and the Jets. So yeah, I think the Eagles have managed to coast their way to 10-2, but I think that's a credit to the amount of talent that they have on their roster. Like Andrew said, I'm not concerned about the Eagles at all. I'm concerned a little bit about this weekend for them against the Cowboys, but 10-2, again, if they lose another game, 10-3, they could easily still win the NFC bye, because obviously the 49ers I think have one more defeat to them, even disregarding Sunday's game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this game hopefully again in the postseason, where hopefully everything is clicking for the Eagles, because I think last time obviously the 49ers had their injury concerns at quarterback, and that was a lot of the pre-game talk is with Brock. These two teams are very, very similarly matched to when they were back in January. What would the outcome be? And obviously that proved the difference. But I think the Eagles, will have a chip on the shoulder now. And yeah, I think huge game against Dallas, and let's just hope it's another extremely exciting game.
I'm trying to find the stats for their running, but it's not. I can't. Well, I do know. Wait, where am I going wrong?
Just for the game or for the year, or?
No, here we go. Okay, so against the Jets, they only rushed for 80 yards, lost that game. And against the 49ers, they only rushed for 46 yards, lost that game. Only 2 losses. And in overtime, the 2 overtime games they won, they rushed for 104 against the Commanders and 185 for the Bills. And they've been averaging, they've only gone under 100 5 times this year. So I think there is a correlation with that. We know how good their wide receivers are, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith as well, and obviously Dallas got it played in this game, but he will be back next week. But I don't think my summary of it, because obviously we talked about it a lot, Gareth, our editor, being an Eagles fan, and a very proud Eagles fan at that. And my argument really, when I watched it, I sort of watched the game and was sort of looking for certain things. I was like, well, I just think it was two good competitive teams and one outplayed the other. There wasn't really, I don't think the Eagles did too much wrong in a lot of places. And I thought it was just well played by the 49ers, and the 49ers came to play, and they just managed to keep them quiet. We'll move on to a topic that we cover the bit of the draft. We cover some of college football from time to time, but because it's quite a polarizing topic and it's come out this week, we thought we'd go over it. So to put a bit of context into this, the college football playoffs, it comes down to 4 teams. And no matter about record or anything like that, it goes to a committee, and the committee picks these 4 teams. This year, it's gone to the top 4 teams that are going through to the playoffs to win it all in the college championship is Michigan, Michigan Spartans, Washington Huskies. No,
don't put the Spartans.
Michigan Spartans is wrong one.
Awful.
That's Michigan State Spartans, isn't it?
Yeah,
Michigan Wolverines, sorry. Washington Huskies, Texas Longhorns, Alabama Crimson Tide. They've all gone through. Some notable misses, some teams that have gone undefeated this year not getting into that. However, this is going to be a bit of an education, I suppose, for me and Johnny, as well as talking about these teams that are going through, because Andrew is our college fanatic. So won't you begin with this these top 4 teams, Andrew? How well have these teams done this year, and do they deserve their place?
Well, obviously the likes of Michigan and Washington both undefeated. Also, Michigan being the Big Ten champion and Washington being the Pac-12 champion. So they won their respective championship games as well. So there was no doubt that being Power 5 conferences, that they were automatically in. It's when it comes down to the next lot after that, which is where the debate then becomes more of what we may have seen on social media quite a lot. I brought this topic up to the group mainly because I wanted to gauge, you guys aren't fully in with the college game, and you haven't been following it and watching it maybe as much as myself. So I wanted to gauge what your thoughts were on the fact of Florida State, FSU, being left out. So obviously, as Freddie said, the games are picked by a committee, and they select who they think should be the top 4. Now, last week, before the championship games were played, Florida State were sat at number 4 in the rankings and became a ACC champion and winners of a Power 5 conference. Now, undefeated, their committee have said, due to the fact that their quarterback is now injured and out for the season, that they are no longer respected enough to challenge for the title. So I just wanted to gauge what your guys' thoughts were on that, really, and whether that's really disrespectful for the likes of Keon Coleman, the wide receiver, who's been absolutely phenomenal this year, and Jared Verse, who's the edge rusher, who's been absolutely fantastic. 2 players that we're going to see in the first round of the draft next year. Do you think that it should be done on record and the fact that they are champions, or do you think that it should be based on what the committee think will be the best televised games?
Should we also premise this that this college 4 that go through, it is changing, isn't it?
This is the last year of it because of this reason. This is the exact reason that it needs to be broadened and opened up to more teams, because there's teams in there like the likes of Georgia, Ohio, and Oregon, which after their losses, Georgia 1 loss, Ohio 1 loss, Ohio lost to the number 1 seed now, and Georgia went undefeated all season and lost in the championship game. So it's one of them where, you want these teams competing. We want more chances. We want other conferences to be given their shot. So yeah, this is the last year of it, and it's for that reason. And just so happens that, the last season of it, that there is a big talking point of a Power 5 conference being missing out in it.
And how many is it going to next year?
12.
12. It's a big jump. 4 to 12 is a big jump. You'd say 6 maybe, but that's quite a big jump there. Johnny, you can fire away first on this if you like, mate, or I can go. I don't mind.
Absolutely. Well, I think from a purely sporting point of view, especially knockout competitions, you want to see an even playing field when it comes to the opportunities you have to play the best teams. And if you've earned the right to be in a position to go quite far in a competition, then you've absolutely got the you should be able to play. And I completely understand the injuries to Jordan Travis makes Florida State potentially less marketable, and obviously the pulling power of Alabama, but for a team that's gone 13-0 this season, I feel they've put themselves in a position where any other year, the taking the injuries aside, they would be in the position. And regardless of the outcome of the Florida State playing without their potentially their star player, they've absolutely earned the right. And I feel that they've been robbed almost of the opportunity to compete. We talk about any given Sunday, that's the thing. Anything can happen in sport, and I really feel for the Florida State players, particularly those who we're coming towards the draft. Andrew's mentioned some of the names, and to be able to put your your strengths and be able to play at the highest level of college football, to really boost your profile going into your push to become professional. I feel they've been robbed a bit of that opportunity, but obviously the marketing power of Alabama. I saw something earlier today where if Florida State were to play in the games, ESPN estimated that they would lose around $100 million worth of potential revenue based on viewerships and advertising sort of deals that Alabama brings, which in big business, that's a hell of a lot of money. Understand it from that point of view, but when it comes to sport, you've got to let those the teams and the players who've earned the opportunity to go far and fight for a championship, especially when they're over 133 college teams. I get it, obviously different divisions and rankings, but I feel Florida State should have had the right. And it's it's good to hear that the system is expanded for next year, and to hopefully stop this sort of thing happening again.
I think when you have what is called the Power 5 divisions, one division or one team is always going to get hurt. I'm sure this is not the first conversation or first time that this has happened to some teams within college football. The problem I have is where's the line where this becomes a popularity contest and a money contest? And that's what it has become. Surely, that was a great start there, Johnny, about Alabama. If they weren't in it, how much money would be lost? When it all whittles down to money, and let's not be childish about this. It does all whittle down to money, and that's what it is in the NFL as well. We have to accept that, and unfortunately, as sporting people, but that is the world that surrounds us in any sport, NFL or any sport otherwise. It is a money game. But let's draw that aside. The popularity contest in my eyes is what damages it and what hurts me with it, because this is an opportunity for these guys, for Florida State, to maybe, like Johnny said, they have a opportunity to put themselves in a window that promotes their profiles to these NFL teams. Now, NFL scouts will know these players are good, but if we look back at last year, CJ Stroud, he was always going to go in the first round. We knew this at this point, but there was question marks over his play, and it was a playoff game against Georgia that promoted his brand to the next level, that then got him that accolade of this guy could be top 5, let alone the first round, top 10, well, from top 10, top 15 to top 5. And people had question marks about some aspects of his game. And in that game, he silenced them critics. And everyone now says, oh, well, they didn't say he was a mobile quarterback. Look at that Georgia game. It was one game. They had a whole film for that whole year, but it's that one game that people still come back to say that that's where we saw his game elevate to the next level. And Florida State players have been robbed of that opportunity. Now, they've performed at an astronomical level this year. To go for, is it 13-0 they've gone?
Yeah.
To go 13-0 in any season for any team is a difficult task. NFL or even in the lower leagues, it is a difficult task to do that. That is a long haul of winning. And I also think it's refreshing to have new teams. It's dull. I'm sorry, it's boring and dull when it's the same teams year after year that get there. Now, that is college football a little bit because there is always big teams, but you had teams like TCU last year who have come in. I know the Texas Longhorn team have not been in the mix for a moment, but they are now. They are now in the mix. But Michigan are always in that position. Alabama are always in that position. Ohio State always in that position. And it's not, but it's nice also to see Washington in there as well because that's a team that was down there. But it does feel like it is half it is the same teams a lot of the time, and this expansion is so necessary, and it is all about this expansion is all about money as well. Now that there is a flood of money flowing through the college game, which we can maybe talk about in a second with a player that there is rumors now he was going to go into the draft and he might stay at college because he's going to earn so much money if he stays in college. This 12-team expansion is long overdue, and is this just been a traditionalistic thing, Andrew, that has gone on for too long? Because there is some aspects of American sport where there is these traditional values, which I think is a good thing to have, but you also have to move with the times. Do you think college has been a bit late to the field with that, but they haven't moved on with the times quick enough?
Well, they have changed. This will be the third time they have changed it, but I think what we're seeing now is in previous years, we've had some really clear favorites that if you had the 12-team playoff, it would be pointless because they were so far behind the programs that were at the top that it was pointless. I just think that there is a lot more programs now that have really developed. They've got a lot more backing. The NIL is now a big thing. The transfer portal is the biggest and best it's been with the new rules around that. So the smaller teams now have a chance to be better season on season. So I think they have caught it at the right time, and it's not the fact that it hasn't been because none of the teams outside the top six in previous years would have even stood a shot against the 1 and 2 seeds come the playoffs. So I think this is the right time for it. So my next question, based on what we were talking about with it is sad that FSU have not quite made it. What would you guys want to see though? Because there's a lot more people are on the side of the rankings are correct than FSU should be in it. And that is clearly from the fact of Las Vegas put out the odds of if Florida State did make it, there'd be massive underdogs on the spread in every single one of the games, whoever they matched up against. So as watchers of the sport, do you guys want the 4 best games there is to watch? Or do you want an underdog in there getting hammered?
I will quickly link this to a comment that we've had on the video from Gun Down, and thank you for leaving a comment. And please, anyone who wants to leave a comment and comments later on once this video is out there and podcast out there, please do, and we'll respond. It's sad that FSU didn't get in, but Alabama beating Georgia was what made the difference. And FSU did lose their QB and looked less than convincing in the last 2 games. He then followed with, the committee did not want another situation from last year where TCU got boat raced in the final, which is linking to what you're saying here. For me, the 4 best games, we want the best games from any team, but I want to see something new, and I want to see underdogs. This is what inspires people to watch sport and to play sport, is seeing the small teams come through and seeing the teams go out. Like Johnny said, any given Sunday. And and Gundown's comments very, very accurate in that TCU were a fan favorite last year because they were an underdog as well. And yeah, all right, they got beat badly in the final, but that's what sport is. It's about the stories. It's about remember that year when we were so close. Remember that day out. Remember that time. Remember when we got them tickets? Remember the day we got the tickets? Remember the trip down there? Remember being with friends? For these small teams, it's not all about winning. It's not these small colleges, sorry. And I'm not saying they are small. I'm just saying outside of what we would traditionally see with Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, etc. Florida State will treasure this year. If they got through and got to the final, they would have treasured that day for years to come, win, lose. They would have enjoyed it, and it would have been a story, and it would have been a story that we would have heard about, and it would have been a story for them players that they would then, some of these guys on these teams won't go to the NFL. They won't. That I know, and is a lot more of a hit rate of players going into the NFL, but some of these guys don't. Some of these guys choose not to. That is also a big thing. This would be something that marked a memory in their lives that they could cherish them forever again, win or lose in that final, and if they got to the final, and even being in the semi-final, I suppose. So I just think this is what sport's about. It's about the underdogs. It's about the stories, and it's about that any given Sunday, and any team that wants it enough can go all the way. And that's for me what it's all about. It's not about the 4 best. If I want to see the 4 best games, let's just have Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia play each other each week. We don't want that. We don't. If we want, I don't want the NFC Championship and the AFC Championship every week. I don't want the Super Bowl every week. I want to see competitive teams and the smaller teams reach a goal. That's what it's all about for me.
Completely agree, Freddie. I think, I don't think this is a question of marketing and neutral viewers at home and attracting the biggest audience. Yes, that is big business, but what is the point of playing sport if you don't get the opportunities when you've earned the right to go and play in these games? And I think we're seeing so much around. We've seen it in football, in the Premier League in this country, the slow move towards a European Super League where the best teams play each other each week, and we were completely denying people players who have earned the right to go out and perform. Yeah, that's obviously that argument's never going to win in the eyes of big business. But I think fundamentally we have to consider that the players of Florida State, they've been absolutely robbed of their opportunity, and I think that's the most fundamental thing when I think if you talk to anyone who plays professional sports, and they say we're not robots, we're not these marketing tools that can go and drive people to go and watch the game. They are human beings, and they're doing their job, and their job is to play football. And if they've earned the right to put themselves into the opportunity of getting a promotion or whatever, I think they should be given that. And I mean, obviously we'll see. We'll wait for next year. I'm looking forward to seeing more, not necessarily competition. I get the point that this Florida State were put in, that they would have been huge underdogs, and the spectacle would have been, perhaps not as good, but we never know with these sort of things until they happen. So I think 12 teams going forward gives that that variability and the potential for an upset, which is what neutrals like myself want to see.
I think the big thing we've got to take away from this is, and the one thing that we forget about is, it's college football. They're college kids. Yes, there's the NIL. There's a lot of money around it. Yes, there's some big coaches on some big money. Yes, there's the TV sponsorship deal. So it is a professional organization in that. But they are college kids studying. Fred makes a point that not all of them are going to go to the NFL. So if anybody's out there that's got the time to read Mike Norvell, the head coach of FSU's statement from it, what are we teaching the kids of FSU, or the ones coming in for the next year, where you can win all your games, you can be a champion of a Power 5, you can, before the season starts, you can schedule games outside of your conference away against LSU, against Florida, and is it their fault that LSU were not as good as what people thought? Because if LSU were competing in the SEC, then that win would have been added to their record as a bigger win. So what is the point in, and what are we teaching the kids? Try your hardest and you'll fail. I think that's a key thing you've got to take away from this. It isn't a professional sport where people are getting paid for it as their jobs, like the NFL or the Premier League. It's still college kids at the end of the day, and I think that's quite a powerful message that Norvell puts forward, and his message is correct. But equally, like we say, all the other points, the top four in some eyes is correct as well. It's just such a tough debate, this one.
Thank you, Alex Evans, for commenting, saying, I agree with a possible underdog Cinderella story. I worry that from next year it will just be about a power two and not the lesser value conferences. Do you think, this is one question that I was going to ask, Andrew, do you think 12's too many? Do you think 12's too, because we've not really said that, because it's great having more of it, but is 12 too many, actually?
No, I don't think it's too many at all. When you look at March Madness, that's 64 teams, straight knockout. There's nothing else like it. It's incredible. So, I think 12's probably right, but the points that that Alex Evans is making there is something that I was massively worried about. When you look at the rankings past the top four, there is no real small teams in there making it. What we're looking at, down to 12, we've got FSU at 5, Georgia at 6, Ohio State, Oregon, Mizzou, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU. So there is no small teams. You're then saying it's going to be 4 from the SEC, it's going to be 4 from the Big Ten. That's 8, and then you go what? Maybe a Clemson.
Notre Dame might squeeze in.
Yeah, and that's what you can say. You're automatically going to get 4 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC. It's just going to happen, isn't it? Because they are the dominant leagues. Next year, people are moving to their divisions. They're going to be the most powerful conferences in football. So yeah, there's 3 spots left for the lesser teams. So I think you are just expanding it into more of just the dominant programs than opening it up to the likes of, halfway through the season, we were talking about maybe Tulane making it or Air Force making it into the playoffs and playing against one of these big guys that they've never played against before. I just don't think it's going to be that broad that it should be, that they're given their chance at a shot at it.
No one wants to see Man City against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu every week. Give me a cold, rainy night in Burnley any day of the week. That's what we want. We want real games for real people, because that's what fans are, real people. And we are, like I said, we're not naive. Like, we're not childish about this. This is all very, very money tree based. Like, we know that. Accept that. That's fine. That's cool. This is just our opinion on it, and it's our passion as well. Our passion is that we want to see great football and great stories, because that's what it's all about. All sport is all about the stories that we hear. Moving back into the NFL, we're looking at the scope at 3 coaches that are definitely on the hot seat. Do not worry, we are not going to go back to Bill Belichick. Sky is not here tonight to defend him. We're going to be talking about Dennis Allen, head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Matt Eberflus, head coach of the Chicago Bears, and Brandon Staley, head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. All 3 of them not doing very well this year, losing records on all sides, Johnny. All 3 possibly on the hot seat. Do we think all 3 may go by the end of the season, or have some of these guys got a chance of sticking it out till the end of the year?
Yeah, definitely three names who are on the hot seat. I think of those 3 at the moment, well, we saw Eberflus and Staley get wins for the Bears and the Chargers respectively this weekend, but I think all 3 have been on the hot seat for a while. I think the one that I'm most concerned about, I think we know that Brandon Staley's been on the hot seat for ages. He obviously wasn't a convincing victory for the Chargers against the Patriots this weekend, but I'm really worried about the Saints and Dennis Allen's. I think the writing's written on the wall for him, and I think the whole structure of the Saints. They've been a team where I think they've just tried to cling on to their championship window far too long. And I was just looking at their cap for next year, and they've still, I can't believe how far over they are. They're a team that really needs a huge reset. They're clinging on to players who I think are probably past their sell-by date. Michael Thomas has got injured again. Cam Jordan's not getting any younger, and obviously Derek Carr injured, and it's been a dismal year for him really in New Orleans. What concerns me is that they could be in a position where they actually win the NFC South. I think all four of those teams may have a coaching change at the end of this year. I wouldn't say it's particularly, a title that you actually want to win this year. I'm worried that, if they do end up making the playoffs, that they'll consider that a good year, have a mid-first round pick, and the cycle just continues. I think they really need to hit the reset button. Allen's not carried on the mantle that Sean Payton left, and I think they desperately need to change. All areas of the field, but particularly quarterback. I don't think the Derek Carr is the right solution. So, Dennis Allen is the one that I'm probably most concerned about of those three.
I think he's definitely on the hot seat. If Andrew could have a megaphone and stand in the street, I think he would shout to his lungs would burst, "Fire Brandon Staley." You have been calling for this for a while now.
You say a while before the season started. I was shocked. I was shocked that they gave him another year, because how bad it was the way they went out last year. I would have been like, right, you're done, mate. It's a team that struggles to get fans in the stadium. It struggles to get followers. It struggles to. You can't just be Brandon stale with this team. You've got to do something. You've got to make moves. They're in LA. You're fighting with the Rams, the Lakers, the Dodgers. They're good at all sports, even with USC, UCLA. You've got to make moves, and you've got to be viable. You can't be boring. You can't be behind the times in that city. So, I'm listening to his press conferences. I'm listening to him going, I really don't think you know what you're on about, mate. Like, you're not making any sense. You've got the highest paid defense in the league, and you're a defensive coordinator, and it's awful. You're not developing your young quarterback. I just don't see how that guy's got a job. His on-field decisions as well are crazy. I think any young lad that's played Madden for long enough could make better decisions than him, because you have to make them in the game, right, when you play it. So I think replace him with a child and they do a better job. I just really not a fan. There's my megaphone, Fred.
So we go from one head coach who's got, really cap issue problems, and they're just very old. Brandon Staley in LA, who is just unexciting and not developing a very talented quarterback, to a head coach that sort of is in a bit of a difficult situation, I think, because they were splashy in the offseason. Wise, I thought, and splashy. I thought they brought the right players in for the right money at the right time. They moved off of the first round pick. They're in a very... I think they're in actually a really positive position, really, Chicago, actually. I don't think he should be on the hot seat at all, because I don't think they need wins. I don't think they want wins. They've got... If they get to the end of the season losing record, they may be in the top 5. They've got the Panthers pick, which gives them the number 1 pick, we assume, at this point in time. Also another pick within the top 10, more than likely the top 5. They've got a plethora of decisions that can be made. I can understand if it would be really easy to go into this draft going, we could draft a new quarterback and we could have a new head coach that could lead this. I don't think they've been preparing for change in Chicago, and I don't think change was going to happen instantaneously, and I don't think it was necessarily going to be this year. I think this year was we'll get some players in and we'll see how we go, and we'll try out Justin Fields and see what happens. It's not necessarily working. I don't think, again, like Staley, I don't think they're exactly giving much help to Fields, so he has been injured for a bit of this season. I don't think they are developing him at the right rate. And I think Matt Eberflus might have done enough maybe to keep the job, but it just might be that the Bears might go, right, we're going to go new quarterback, new coach, we'll start it all again. Will that work? You look at the Panthers, it hasn't worked, but then you could look at the Texans, definitely has worked. It's about whether they get the right person down, and they've not had the right coach in Chicago for a long time. I don't know if that means that getting a new coach necessarily means they'll get the right coach, because historically we've seen that not happen. This is probably coming from a Steeler point of view. I think it'd be better to not rock the boat at this point in time for me.
Classic Steeler. Stay faithful. Keep people around too long.
Yeah, keep them around too long. Keep him. Bring back Adam Gase as well. You know,
can I put to you? Eberflus is a defensive coordinator. He's a defensive-minded head coach. Would you say that Justin Fields has done enough to win a few of those games, and it's the defense that's let them down? Also, he's not developed his young quarterback. He's not done anything progress with his O-line. If you're the general manager and you're looking about how can I move this team forward? I've got some great picks in the draft. I could offload Justin Fields. I can get a new young quarterback and then give him to a guy that can't sort his defense out, can't sort his O-line out, and can't develop a youngster. Would you want that as a GM, or would you go, if I'm getting a new quarterback, shall I get a new GM to get this going?
I don't know. I think there's a lot happening in Chicago in all areas from the head office down. And I don't know whether rocking the boat is the right thing to. I don't overly think they should move off Justin Fields, personally. I'm not entirely sold on that. I think they could definitely trade down both of their spots, get better players and really build a team around, and actually commit and build a team around Justin Fields. And we say, new young quarterback. Fields is still just as young, though there is wasted time on the tires already with Fields. I don't know. I'm probably being a bit classic Steeler here and saying not rock the boat. I would stick with it. I think young quarterbacks, they could offload Fields and bring a new quarterback in, and it might not work straight away. And that happened with Lawrence, and look how well that's worked out. And they could really do another year. I don't know. I think it's very. I think a lot of these teams are very, very, very quick to throw the axe about. I mean, the axe has already been talked about throwing about Robert Saleh in New York, and I think that'd be ridiculous to do. I think that'd be the most ridiculous thing. I don't understand why that's happening. Do you want to give? We might maybe move on to that for a second, because that's been already talked about this week for Saleh out.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think Saleh has always been very good at managing media, and I don't know. I think the perception of his sort of coaching style is he comes across as a very likable person. I'm just not sure about there's so much uncertainty in New York, which unfortunately has come off the back of Rodgers trade. We invested heavily into the offense on weapons that failed to produce. There's just so many holes across.
Weapons is quite a generous adjective. For
Well, I mean, we gave out. I can't remember exactly the amount. I'm sure it was around 70 million for Alan Lazard, which I just cannot believe. But going back to Eberflus, I think. To build success, you've got to have that right, the right environments. And there's been a lot of controversy in Chicago, as in New York this year, where in Chicago, we've seen Justin Fields blame his coaches for some of the play. We've now got Zach Wilson saying that he doesn't want to come back. That smells like two coaches that have lost, a little bit of the dressing room, regardless of these two personalities. Honestly, I don't see it ending well for either of them. I think Aaron Rodgers will return next year and the coaches will return with him. But if there isn't success next year, immediate succession in New York, then I could see Robert Saleh get replaced. And the same with Eberflus. I think the boat, unfortunately, I think has already been well and truly rocked in Chicago. Everything with the defensive coordinator hasn't really come out, because I still think that we're living in, the narrative of how well they did to get the Panthers pick and what they got back for trading away last year's first overall pick, which, gives them a great platform to move on. But this is a team that's massively invested in this year. Justin Fields in year 3 hasn't developed. I think you've got to put a huge onus on the coach, unfortunately, because, we know just how fast paced the NFL is. We know that the coaching span, the lifespan of coaches who aren't really performing is relatively short. So, I think Eberflus is gone, unfortunately, as well.
If I had to predict, I'd say that Dennis Allen will get sacked before the season's over, and Staley and Eberflus will be sacked after the season's over. Would you both agree?
Well, if anybody does get sacked prior to the season being over, I think Kellen Moore's going to be one that people are tapping up. If that's the case, Staley might keep hold of him till the end of the season to reevaluate their options, because you haven't got anybody coming in then to look after it. Well, it's more Ben Johnson and Eric Bieniemy are the 3 names that are flying around for all of the potential jobs. I think I've seen Bieniemy linked with Chicago today. I think that's already been talked about, despite the fact there's a possibility he could be the Commanders head coach next year. We haven't really mentioned that.
Which I think is a bit of a gentleman's agreement behind closed doors, personally. But. So,
some people might want to keep their cards close to their chests before they see whatever happens, because there's going to be a race for these guys, and they don't want to leave themselves in a sticky situation. To sack Allen before the season's ended could be a tough call, because they could qualify for the playoffs.
My thing is, if he loses a game, I think it would be one of them reactionary things where it could we'll sack him because it will light a fire under everyone to pump on for the next, to get us to playoff. I don't know. That's why. But that was my thinking on it anyway.
They haven't got overly too many tough matches left.
No,
they got Panthers.
We're not got overly many matches left. Let alone
Panthers, Giants,
any of the NFC South. Easy.
So,
I think Ron in Washington, for me, seems like the most likely to get. I was surprised he's still here after the weekend.
You're joking. Sam Howell's playing at MVP level. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about him. Right. Anyway, Andrew, Johnny, really appreciate you coming on tonight, guys. Thank you all for watching or for listening. If you are listening later on to this, we will see you all again